Крути, крути, крути. О, забирай.
И что там такое?
Пятерку забираю.
Да.
И что там такое?
А где 1 евро?
Что это вышло?
Это, ну, такой сувенир.
Can you take my photograph?
American boy, American joy, American boy for always time. American boy, уеду с тобой, Москва, прощай. American boy, ой-ой, уеду с тобой. American boy.
I'm very happy that you made it with your buses, arrived. May I introduce you to Mr. Bausch, who's the head of this institute. May I also draw your attention to Katrin again, whom you already know, who's the pedagogical advisor in this institution. And our guides in a minute, they are going to arrive. All right. So you're going to get a welcoming speech by Mr. Bausch, and then we're proceeding for a tour of the premises, so you can all the pictures that you had wanted to take in a minute. Okay? That means you're going outside again, so do take your jackets and whatever, and your things with you. And after that, we're going to proceed with a coffee. Okay? So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Quite a hot spot during the Cold War. Let me give you some facts about our institution and what we are doing, what are our roots and what is our mission. OP Alpha was an observation point. We'll give you all the information, detailed information, when we do the tour. But just to give you some brief outline, it was an observation point erected by American troops right after the end of the Second World War at the demarcation zone in these days. And since we were here, or we are here only 120 miles away from Frankfurt, you can imagine that there was a strict border regime. There was a 5-mile zone, 5-kilometer zone, beginning here at the border, 5 kilometers towards the east. You only could enter and leave and live with special permissions. It was a kind of military closed and restricted area for citizens of the GDR. After the reunification, and after the collapse of the Eastern Bloc and the reunification of Germany, this place became obsolete because the Americans left it, and government of the federal state of Hessen was not very interested in keeping it up because it meant costs, and why should we keep it? So there were plans to demolish the whole setting here, all the barracks, and to let the forest take over the area. There was a group of German citizens from both sides of the former border who really invested lots of time, arguments and money to keep that place as a memorial, and they managed to convince the two governments of the federal states in 2008 to form a foundation to give the necessary capital so that the foundation could start its work. And as of the 1st January 1st, 2008, we are Point Alpha Foundation. We are the owners of this compound now, and our task is to keep up the memory, to show developments and possible developments which might have taken place during the Cold War, the military confrontation scenarios, and we also keep up the former border, you will see later with us. And in the second part of our exhibition, 1 kilometer away from here, we have the house on the border. I think you've seen it when you came, the house with the blue roof, with a special exhibition on GDR, life in the GDR border regime. And the third part, also quite important, is what we call the Path of Hope. These are 14 sculptures, 4 meters high, with a strong connection to the biblical history of the sufferings of Jesus Christ, but with an artist's view. These stations have names, like for example Solidarity or Comfort. So each person is invited to reflect for him or herself the meaning of these kind of sculptures on his personal historical occasions. Until 1990, from 46 roughly, they were already here. But they didn't live in these barracks. These barracks are fairly new. They were built only the last 10 years of the station. So usually the Americans stayed in these tents all over the year. So it was a pretty tough 80 to 100, 150, just depending on the international situation. If there was tense situations, they were upgraded. It was less than less, and they had their a group of tanks, generally 45 tanks. M60 was the latest model, and some armored personnel carriers. So what they did is patrol the border, listen to radio traffic, informed their base in Fulda about everything which was happening. After that, when they had the barracks, it was quite okay for them. They, where the toilets are, where you walk by, this was their mess hall. They had quite good food, so it wasn't too bad afterwards. They were quite self-reliant. We had an own gas station, an own generator, an own water pool. Patrolled by jeeps, like with these mudds here. One jeep didn't report properly after half an hour. He went out with his alarm group by tank and followed their tracks and tried to find out where they were. A little bit comparable to the situation today in Korea. Here is the different periods of American commitment. As I told you, the first group of soldiers came here right after the war ended. After the war, you see, they only had carbines, submachine guns. Sometimes they even went on horseback because they patrolled the occupied areas and the zones just to prevent crimes to happen. A kind of police force after the war. They stayed here until 1952, Then the Americans sort of dissolved again these constabulary forces because they were not of use anymore. The Germans had their own police. Meanwhile, as I must underline, these guys did a hell of a job for the reconstruction of German police force after the Second World War. Imagine we had, when my father became a policeman after the war, he was a soldier for 8 years, so you had to teach him again what it meant to be a democratic policeman. He wasn't used to it anymore. And these guys did the job. There was the system, it was called 2-3 men in a jeep. That means 2 Americans, 1 German. And then they went with them to patrols. They took cases and they showed them how to deal with a criminal and not how to beat him half to death and say, please sign that. So that was a good job. They were dissolved in 1952. And then the first military group came here again. This was the 14th Armored Cavalry Regiment. That meant cavalry regiment meant they were doing the patrol business. If you just group around here, I can give you some explanations on that display. Okay, here's Frankfurt. This is Point Arthur. This was Point Tennessee further south, and is Point India further north, and Point Romeo even further north. This is Frankfurt, and these were NATO troops. That meant American and German troops. There only was the United States troops and German. As you see, the NATO had its troops organized in a so-called layer cake, one above the other. The Dutch troops were rather up north, and British troops also were stationed north, and then we had American, German, and French in the southern part. The eastern side consisted of until the 1780s on a lot of military hardware. We had in this area roughly about 4,000 tanks on both sides in this small area. About 150,000 armed people, armed soldiers on both sides. The force ratio in conventional forces between East and West was about 3-1. That means in case of a military conflict, the scenario we are thinking it might have happened, as the research tells us, would have been a breakthrough of Warsaw Pact troops towards Frankfurt in different directions, one to the south direction, Munich, and one here to Frankfurt, and to let's say to bottle up Frankfurt, so to speak. The NATO troops were only there they only had the chance to slow down this possible attack. They were would have never been able to stop it, not even able to start a counterattack. No way, because they were just not powerful enough. NATO had one strategy. It was called Reforger, return of forces to Germany. The idea was, and it was a good idea, but I doubt whether it would have worked. The idea was we arm, let's say, 10, 15 or 20 depots with weapons, tanks, trucks, everything, already standing, ready, filled up with gas, everything there, but no people. And the soldiers we fly in from the United States. 10 divisions in 10 days. You can imagine the logistical task it would have been to fly in 10 divisions in 10 days. The idea was they go to the depots, they jump into the vehicles, and then they start attacking. But I'm not sure whether it would have been working. So the idea was to slow down the attack, the possible attack, to give the other forces the chance to come back in and to fly back. Since it was this situation, it would have been nearly inevitable for the NATO to use nuclear tactical weapons right at the beginning to slow down this progress. In other words, NATO would have nuked the Warsaw Pact troops, and the Warsaw Pact troops would have nuked NATO right here. not with ballistical weapons as tactical weapons, artillery, and short-distance weapons and atomic mines. We are talking about a small area. We are talking about a small area, only a couple of 100 square miles, not big. And we are talking about 140, 150, about 200 atomic devices exploding here. This is why we think this is such a special place, because we are right in the heart of West Germany, right in the heart of Europe. It might have happened, this catastrophe of a nuclear...
There was no reactor here.
No, there was no reactor. No. But as I said, the conventional force of the East, of the Warsaw Pact was so high that NATO said, well, the only thing we can do is bottle them up and nuke them. No good. This option is not good. And I would say in the 80s, Soviet Union wasn't able anymore because of the Afghan war, because of the internal situation. There wouldn't have been. These were demolition shafts on the roads from around the military camp and towards Fulda. They were marked with a cross, and each demolition shaft with a cross meant this was a place to deposit a mine. These were the actual mines, not nuclear mines, these were conventional mines to blow up bridges, streets, whatever is usable for transport of military vehicles. Americans, after the reunifications, the Americans left this 11th ACR, their symbol is the Black Horse, because they're called the Black Horse Regiment. And then, so they took their Black Horse, very symbolically, and they retreated the flag here in Point Alpha, and they went. After that, this place, as I told you, was empty. There were 1 year or so asylum seekers from all over the world were put in here. Quite a terrific place to stay for people who fled from countries in Africa or elsewhere. And then it was in a pretty bad shape, and this citizens initiative, they started to rebuild it, and this was the original document where the foundation of with the declaration of foundation of the Point Alpha Foundation.
Любов.